All right, this is our last show of the year.
That's right.
And you dressed up for it. Look at that.
I did. Want to look presentable?
Yeah. Professor Luby. I'm going to call you Professor for this entire episode, okay?
Oh no, my head's going to get too big.
Well, you do have a PhD, don't you? In
Oh no.
You don't? I
No.
thought. Oh.
No, Winnie has a PhD.
Oh, I thought you got a PhD in musicology.
No, just bachelor's.
Oh, okay. Well, you should get an honorary one.
I'm an amateur musicologist, so
I
work for a university or anything.
Listen, just from these podcasts alone, I think anyone would agree that you are a musicologist.
This is better than working. I get to hang out with you and talk about music.
You're very impressive. You can connect all these dots of different cultures, and the production credits on so many albums and musicians who are really like way under the radar and deservedly need to be much more above the radar, and you know them. It's really great. I learn a lot. I learn a lot every time. And you've set me down some really nice pathways to find new stuff. So
good. Well, that's nice.
So you're my professor anyway.
I learn a lot from you as well.
Mm.
I do. I think we're good balanced.
Excellent. Yes, indeed.
That's the beautiful thing about music, is there's so much to learn.
Yeah.
It feels endless at times.
That kind of leads us into our theme this week, huh?
Yeah. Our musical moments.
I got my drumstick. Our theme this week is
our top 10 musical moments of 2021. Our personal musical moments, right?
Yes.
That's good, because that was the list I made. If you're going to say no.
No, that's it. I think for me, I just, when we were thinking about doing the top 10 albums or top 10 songs, I just couldn't do it. I just, this is getting really bad on my end in terms of where the music is for me right now.
Yeah.
I mean, you were able to uncover some really hidden gems. And there were a few that I knew about too, but for the most part, it's just really, I can't, I mean, you turn the clock back to whatever year, to 1998 or 2002 and whatever, I'm sure I have great lists from those years, but something has just, I can't do it anymore.
Wow. Well, it'll come back.
So,
yeah.
I hope music comes back to being something that I connect with again at some point.
Yeah, new music.
Like right. Popular music. It's just in a really bad place in my opinion right now. And when I dive back into older stuff, it just becomes more apparent, Like, have you ever sat down and read, for example, just off the top of my head, the lyrics to a Paul Simon song and then looked at the lyrics to let's say a Taylor Swift song?
I've never compared them, but I can imagine.
It's not good. And that's just one small example of just like the level of I don't know, intelligence that was part of what music was.
Yeah.
And it's just, and Taylor Swift is actually not bad. Like, she's actually someone I'd consider to be, kind of thoughtful and creative, but still it was just like, oh man.
No comparison.
No.
Yeah. We could do a whole sociological episode on that.
Yeah.
Cultural, sociological. Right. Yeah. It'd be interesting.
But anyway, so our top 10 musical takeaways 2020.
Yeah. Stuff that we enjoyed.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first?
Sure.
I think you should go first.
Okay. So my top, it's okay. So number 10 was this, I don't know if you've seen it, but there's this new Brian Wilson documentary that just came out. It's really flown under the radar because of all the, the Beatle documentaries that have been out, and it just kind of, I think nobody really talked about it, but it just came out, or it's about to come out. It's good. It's like, it is a 2021 release, and I just watched it, and it's really good. It's really touching.
Wow.
Probably not going to give you a ton of stuff you didn't already know about, but it's still just more of a, like, dive into how he ticks, like what makes him who he is. And he gets a lot of screen time in this time period, like right now.
Yeah.
That's really sweet to see, because his brothers have passed away, and he gets very emotional at times, and he also gets very nostalgic at times. And then there's moments where you see him in the studio, both then and now, so you get to see a little bit of his creative process.
Right.
But it was just a touching little thing, and it's only an hour and a half long, so it's it's not like a big undertaking, and it's not the most creative documentary, like it's not anything cutting edge.
Yeah.
You have the talking heads, not the talking heads, but
right, the people,
Elton
you'd expect.
John, Springsteen, and
right,
the guy from this band and that band, all just throwing accolades at Brian Wilson, which is like a little bit that's been done.
Yeah.
But it's still nice. It's just a nice little treat, just to kind of like. And
it's streaming now?
Yeah, I think it's not free though. I think it's you have to pay for it on Amazon Prime, but it's not. It's like $4 or something.
That's not bad.
Yeah, it was enjoyable.
Sounds good.
And
have there been any?
What?
I was wondering if have there been other documentaries about the Beach Boys? I mean, I've seen some of the cheesier ones.
There must be, right? Although the best thing I ever saw about them was that film called Love and Mercy with John Cusack.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And that wasn't a documentary, but it almost was in a lot of ways,
Kind of a biopic, kind of. Yeah. That was good.
Yeah, that's really good. In fact, that's better than this, even though Brian Wilson's actually in this. Because it's just a more thoughtful, like piece of art. But
yeah.
But this is really good. And anytime somebody breaks down a song like God Only Knows, I just get goosebumps.
Right. One of the greatest songs ever written.
Yeah. And I can't get enough of learning like how it was built.
Right. I remember, in high school, I mean, when you first hear the Beach Boys, it's those kind of surf songs, and you think, oh, that's nice. And I remember my friends and I trying to, figure out Good Vibrations, and you realize like how complicated and complex his writing was, and his harmony structures, just how beautiful they were. Yeah.
I've been trying to drum.
Like, I think he's ripe.
What's that?
He's ripe for like you said, a documentary that pays homage to his genius.
I'd like to see another one made at some point that goes deeper.
Yeah.
Sometimes
a documentary just gets you going back and pulling out old records too, and that's nice.
Yeah.
So
anyway, that's my number 10.
Cool. I like it. All right. In no particular order. Number 10 or number 1, whichever one you want to choose, are music biographies I read this year. On Goodreads, you can set a goal. I'm going to read X number of books, and I usually pick 24. I think I'll read 2 books a month, and I usually almost make it. I think I'm going to fall short by a book or 2 this year.
Wow,
but I read. It's some people are like, ooh, 50 books. How did you do that? But I read 4 music biographies this year, kind of spread out throughout the year. The first one was Jeff Tweedy's book. I think I read that at the beginning of the year and then sent it to you. And that was really enjoyable because he's someone right around our age. So it was very identifiable, like him talking about growing up when he did in the 60s and 70s. And the music you listened to and the just the culture. It was very like, oh, I know that. Yeah, I went through that. I did that. And just
Yeah.
to kind of hear, read about someone, one of the more creative people going today, as we've talked about, um, how he got to where he was, the struggles he had,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
And so that was a good one. I read Richard Thompson's book, Beeswing, which he goes, from birth to I think 1977 or so.
Hmm.
And he said he wrote up to that point because he finds most rock biographies boring after a certain point, like people get well known and then it just kind of becomes, well, I went and I made this record and I made that record. And so but it was fun. It was, very Richard Thompson-esque, full of humor and great writing and some great stories about, being part of this kind of scene in England, where his band Fairport Convention kind of I don't know if it's invented like folk, like this electric folk rock, like of old English songs, and kind of inspired other people to kind of look at their own cultures,
Hmm.
like Los Lobos, and other bands. So that was cool.
Hmm.
Sinead O'Connor's book I just read. That was a very intense read. Beautiful and heartbreaking, and bold, just kind of like her,
Hmm.
And I've almost finished the John Hyatt book that just came out when he got that for me for Christmas. And I've always been a huge John Hyatt fan, going back probably to like the 80s when he put out that great record, Bring the Family. And it just kind of stood out as a very non-80s record. It was a kind of a sparse production. There wasn't any synthesizers on it. There wasn't, there was no gated snares. The songwriting was, full of depth and soul, and the songs, really kind of rocked and swung at the same time.
Hmm.
And he's an interesting character too. He's quite an eventful life, He's had some pretty major things to overcome. I guess as all these people have,
Hmm.
that I read about.
Yeah.
So I'm a total sucker for music bios, and I will devour them. And sometimes I'll read music bios by people I don't even really like or know, so just to find out. But these 4 people I love, so
That's cool.
yeah.
It's very, I have to say, for someone with 4 kids to read 2 books a month, that is amazing. I have 0 kids and I can only do about 1 a month.
I think I get it from my mother and my mother and my grandmother are both librarians.
Huh.
And so I would, during the summers, I would, it was the 70s, so I would be outside on my own, and I gotta go to the library and check in with my mom, and I would just get some books,
Mm-hmm.
or we were visiting my grandparents. My grandmother worked at this little small town library.
Yeah.
And yeah, I usually get up in the morning, make coffee, and read for like an hour.
That's
And,
amazing.
if I'm not too tired, I'll read at night.
Yeah.
It's better than checking email or the New York Times.
Right. The morning is really a great time to read. It's true.
Yeah, it's quiet.
Yeah.
The kids are getting older too, so
Part of it is I have to put the blame on TV, because we're living in this golden age of TV.
Mhm.
And it's an interesting thing too. This would be another interesting topic. Like why has television gotten so much better while music has gotten so much worse?
Right.
I don't know, like we are literally in the most prolifically great era of TV,
right,
in my lifetime by far,
and it's television, not movies, right? You're talking about
television. I mean, once in a while I'll
which,
also watch a movie in the evening, but mostly it's TV shows.
yeah.
And it's just, there's so many great shows,
Mm,
so it's weird how one medium has gotten or one art form, I guess you can call TV an art form, has gotten so great while another one has really gotten so bad. But the bigger point is I'm so distracted by wanting to watch these shows that I don't do as much reading as I'd like to.
Yeah.
It's my own fault. I mean, I still enjoy reading more than I enjoy watching TV, which is interesting because
Yeah.
the active part that your brain has to play
Hmm.
but um anyway, that's not what this episode is
Yeah.
about. But that's cool. That's great.
That'll be we're going.
I wonder what you'll read in 2022.
I don't know. The beautiful thing about Goodreads, I love that website because you can, oh, I want to read that book, I want to read that book, and then you can, sort them and put them in different shelves and
Yeah.
yeah, so yeah.
Well,
I don't know.
I was at the Strand the other day, and they have a pretty good music section, and I saw that Sinead O'Connor book, and
Mhm.
I almost bought it, but it was the hardcover, and it was quite expensive, I have to say.
Mm,
So I'll wait to probably get it at the library or something. I do want to read that though.
yeah, I got mine at the library.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's a good writer.
Cool. I'm looking forward to checking those out. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. All right. So what do you got? What's up on?
All
What's
right,
up
my
on
next
your
one
deck?
is I explored Daniel Lanois a little more this year than I have in the past. I think you might remember there was that episode of a podcast where he was interviewed.
Yeah.
I forget what podcast it was now. Maybe it was that Rolling
I
Stone.
remember watching it or listening.
Yeah.
You sent it to me.
I sent it to you, right? Yeah, and I got really
did.
taken with him. The first thing I did was I revisited albums like "Oh Mercy," Bob Dylan,
Yep.
which is I love that album, and I hadn't heard it in a long time. I had really put it away for a while.
It's great. Yeah.
And Time Out of Mind too. But then I just started listening to his own music a little bit more. Also,
He's a talented guy.
Yeah, and I can't say that right now I can like rattle off names of his songs. I haven't become like that kind of a an aficionado or like an expert on the Daniel Lanois collection. But I took a deeper dive into him this year, which was just nice, just to explore his talent.
Yeah, I love Daniel Lanois. Yeah. I know I've told you the story about seeing him years ago. I think the album is called "Is It for the Love of Winona?" from '93, and he came to Burlington and he played this small club, and I got there early thinking it would be packed, and there was probably like 30 of us there, and he had his full band and they played this beautiful set. And afterwards they came off stage and they just hung out at the bar. I'm not really big on talking to people that like my musical inspirational people, but he just kind of hung out at the bar and talked to people about the weather, about the news, about music. He was such a nice guy.
Didn't you also talk to Paul Westerberg?
Oh, I talked to Slim, the guitar player in the Replacements.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Westerberg was the same club, but he was upstairs, and Slim was downstairs talking to the guitar player. So
okay. That's a nice part about living in
Nectars.
a place.
Yeah.
Living in a place like Burlington and going to see shows, it's a little more
right.
Small town kind of.
Right. You're apt to run in. Yeah, I've run into Lyle Lovett early one morning on Church Street. Hanging out with the kids. When they used to have the fountain on Church Street, we were hanging out and he stopped and said hello and what he was up to. I was like, "Hey kids, that was Lyle Lovett." They were like, 4 and 5. They're like, "Okay." So
that's funny.
I know. So yeah, I think Daniel Lanois is incredibly talented, like in a diverse. He can play with Emmylou Harris. He can do the experimental stuff. He can do the folk stuff, solo acoustic. Yeah, and he does it all with authenticity too.
Yeah, and it was a really interesting interview with him. Also, he's like interesting to listen to.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's Canadian, right?
He is. Yeah, he's from close by. I know him and his brother had a studio in Ontario.
Oh yeah, he talked about that.
Yeah, that was really popular with lots of, kind of helped a lot of Canadian bands kind of kept going. Blue Rodeo, I think, knew him, and Crash Vegas, and lots of other people kind of passed through.
Yeah.
So yeah, you always hear them, talk about Danny Lanois or Danny or whatever, like it's just some guy that lives in their town.
Didn't he produced stuff with David Byrne too, right? Or is that Brian Eno? That's Brian Eno, right? That's
Brian Eno, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Daniel Lanois did the Joshua Tree.
Right, him and Brian Eno did stuff.
Yeah,
the
together,
Joshua Tree.
Right. They did it together, yeah.
Yeah, Acton Baby.
Yeah.
And of course Robbie Robertson and
that
Neville Brothers record, Yellow Moon. Do you have that one?
Yeah.
That's a great record.
Yeah.
That's one of my all-time favorites.
Huh.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah.
Nice one.
Daniel Lanois.
That's cool. Are you ready for my next one?
Yeah.
Because you're part of it.
Uh-oh.
This is kind of, I don't know, this might be like number 2A, 2A, 2B, 2C, because there's a lot of things that are connected with this. And it was kind of the making of There, Not There, the record, and how that started out in this pandemic when we couldn't really travel. And on Wednesday nights, we started getting together with Adam and Sam, and we were working on James Bond. And it kind of grew from there. And you and I started like sending, you were sending me songs to listen to, and we were, from your album, working on arrangements. The weekly get-togethers were just like so nice, to like kind of engage, because up until that point I've just been playing guitar at home and listening to music and hadn't played with anybody in months, really probably 9 months or something. So it was this great kind of creative outlet that we could do every week and look forward to and see each other on Zoom and listen. And then to kind of piggyback on that, have the release of our single James Bond, and to get the radio play that we did here in Vermont, and to make a video and have it, have the reception we got was really cool.
Yeah, that was really cool. And to think that all happened during this time where we couldn't be together is pretty amazing.
Oh yeah, I know. Yeah. So that was my number 2, with a bunch of like, dots.
Yeah, that's great.
So yeah, so thanks. That was really nice.
Yeah, no, thank you too, and thanks to Adam and all those, those opening up.
Sam, and
his time like that was great, and Sam
and Gary.
Yeah, but just I guess just the just in general, the ability to create and connect musically with people even during this time, is special, and clearly makes this a little bit more palatable. So just know that you can still do that with people.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, it's very cool. Now that the pandemic has been with us for some time, there's a little bit less, I see less of that online musical activity. Seems like maybe it's just not as needed anymore, or people just maybe got a little burned out on doing all these, Facebook concerts and Zoom concerts and all that stuff.
Right.
But I am seeing a little bit less of it now. I don't know. Hopefully it won't come back. That obviously that's the hope, that we can not have to go back to that. But But it was nice to know it can happen if needed. So thanks for mentioning that. That's a really nice one.
So that's my number 2.
Very cool.
Or 9.
Yeah.
All right, what you got?
Check out our song James Bond on Spotify and on YouTube.
That's right. We're waiting. We're waiting by the mailbox for the royalty checks.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Let's see. My next one is exploring the wonderful world of guitar shopping. For lack of a better word, I think just I think I've become one of those people that's just obsessed with the guitar as a thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And right.
Yeah, I know.
Uh,
Examples A and B. Yeah.
and people, it's very easy to say, well, you only have two hands, but how many do you need? And it's not even really about having them at a certain point. And I don't have that many really when you think
Right.
about the collections that some people have.
Oh yeah.
And they're all like modest, they're just nice little instruments, but it's
Yeah.
really more the process of the learning about them as you become more interested in finding one for yourself. You start to
Right.
go down a lot of rabbit holes, and you learn more about the histories of certain companies and the histories of certain models, or what
Right.
makes one model slightly different than another model,
Yeah.
or how this wood makes it sound differently than this wood.
hmm
Why wood ages a certain way that it does over time, why
Oh yeah.
proper hydration is so important. Um, uh, the whole thing, like why certain strings sound better on certain guitars than on other guitars, even though they're all good strings, but somehow there's this marriage between string and wood.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And
Yep.
it's just like this endless thing, and you just learn as you go.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
and I'll never be a master crafts person about guitar making or repairs or anything like that, but it's nice to know a little bit more about how they're constructed. And
Yeah. Definitely.
for me, particularly acoustic guitars, I think I'm more of an acoustic guitar
hmm
fan than electric.
Yep.
uh,
Yep.
I'm just endlessly enamored of this instrument. And I
Yeah.
think this year, as I've hunted for a good amount of this year, I really spent a lot of this year hunting for something that I was in. I had it in my head, and I knew what I sort of wanted, but then at the same time I didn't, and that also opened up a lot of opportunities to also
Yeah.
talk to a lot of people
hmm
who were all very also passionate and just love talking about it. Um,
Oh yeah.
and it's just a great instrument, right? 6 strings strung across some wood. It's very basic, but
Wire. Yeah. Wire and wood.
yeah,
But yeah, the things it can do.
yeah.
Yeah. In the way it can make you feel and evoke emotions in other people. And
hmm
yeah. Yeah. It's a great instrument. I agree.
I just got really into it this year,
It's fun learning about it, and there's some people, who are luthiers and who understand really in depth,
Yeah.
and part of me wishes I could just, pull off the top of the guitar and, work on something, but it's nice to know how they're constructed and, you know, even just finding out little things, like how the pickups are wound on electric, um,
Mm-hmm.
and what a difference that makes. And how is the bridge set up? Do the strings go through the body or do they come through the bridge? I've heard people argue about that,
Mm-hmm.
and people get really passionate about, oh no, they have to come through the body, oh no, they can come through the bridge. It's, so they don't need, so yeah, it's endless. It's another one of those endless things.
Yeah, I would say one of the highlights was when I went into this really great um, retro vintage guitar store here in Brooklyn, which I told you
Oh
about.
yeah. Yeah.
And they're great because they let you play the instruments, even though each one is worth a small fortune. Um,
Right.
they watch you with a watchful eye, but they let you take them off the racks by yourself. And
Yeah.
and when you strum some of these things, like you feel the history of this guitar. You
Mm,
feel the ownership of the people or person who must have once owned it, and how many
yeah.
times their body and their oils from their fingers
Oh yeah.
touched it, or the emotion that they put into it as it was played, or the conversations that guitar heard by sitting in a room where where people were
Yeah.
working their life.
hmm
um, is a very cool thing. These guitars date back to the 1930s and 1940s, and
Right.
you
Right.
realize how much time that is, and how much that wood has aged. And
Yep.
and the stories that these guitars could tell, you know?
Yeah, I really think there's something to that, because I think, you know, I think right now we kind of live in a throwaway culture, right? You know, your iPhone breaks and you get a new one, and
Yeah.
your microwave breaks, you get a new one, you know. But with something like a guitar, I mean, I had my great grandfather's violin, you know,
Mm.
and it means the world to me to have it, you know, because he went to the music conservatory, you know, him and my great grandmother in Montreal. Um, and to have this violin, you know, he held it and he played it, and I have pictures of him, you know, playing it, you know. Um, so I think there's something there about the soul and, you know, the feeling going into playing this instrument being passed on, you know,
Yeah.
and the instrument carrying all that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's totally something there with that.
Yeah. So that was a nice 2021 highlight.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, anytime you want to talk about guitars, you know.
I know. You're my go-to guy.
It's fun. It's just fun.
As you know,
They're
you
great.
get these texts from me, right? When I'm in stores.
I know. And I mean, you're at this great advantage that you live in a place like New York City, you know, I remember living in the Bay Area, and it was kind of probably the same way. It was just like there were music stores everywhere. And
Yeah.
some of them, I remember this one guy had this great guitar shop out of his garage in Berkeley, you know, and he was open on the weekends, and you could go look at these amazing, you know, acoustic guitars that he made, you know. Yeah, so
It's true. I mean, we do have a lot of guitar shops here, but at the same time, there's always like this, there's always like these great stories of people in Kalamazoo or, you know, Tacoma, where they're, you know, they're hoarding these
yeah.
tremendous amount of beautiful vintage guitars, and they're just in the middle of nowhere, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah. Or someone finds one at a garage sale.
Yeah.
It was in the attic. It was my grandson's, you know, he never played it, and it's, you know,
Yeah.
whatever, Les Paul, you know.
Yeah.
I had a friend who bought a Rickenbacker at a yard sale for like $100
Wow.
back in the 90s. And he goes, "Oh my God, should I? It doesn't have any strings on it. Was that?" I was like, $100, of course. Yes. You know. So yeah, you never know.
Yep. Yep.
You never know what you're gonna find out there.
All right,
good one.
your turn.
All right, mine was. Let's see. I'm trying to read my writing here. I'm a curious fellow, and I'm always, you know, wanting to learn more about music. And when I went back to school in 2009 to kind of study ethnomusicology, and I was really interested in like how music and culture had traveled from different places, like West Africa or East Africa or Ireland, you know, or the British Isles to America. And so this year was there was a lot of articles about Black women in America kind of reclaiming like Americana music or country music, you know. So that was really exciting me to read these articles about, you know, Rhiannon Giddens or Allison Russell, you know, or Layla McCalla, you know, all these people that were kind of saying, actually, this music, you know, I think when you look at American music, there's no straight line, you know, like, oh, it came from here, you know, like the blues comes from, you know, not to get too into it, but, you know, like Islamic music kind of passed down to West African over to America, melds with Celtic music from Ireland, and it kind of becomes blues and bluegrass and country, you know. And so just hearing them kind of talk about it and bring more awareness to it, I think is really nice, because it brings some depth to it. Because I think, you know, I think, you know, like it's the same thing with any kind of history, you know, growing up when I did, a lot of the history you learn in school wasn't true, you know. And so to kind of have people kind of looking more in depth at this stuff is really exciting to me, and to hear the records they're making. And to, you know, like Rhiannon Giddens will do a show, and she'll do almost like a lecture before the show, you know, about the history of American music and Black string bands, and how, you know, blacks and whites would play music with each other, and then, you know, how that developed into other forms of music. So I don't know, that's kind of like a long-winded answer for my number three, just about how a lot of um, American or Americana music is kind of being properly credited, you know.
Mm. And you think that that's a trend that really started this year in 2021?
I think it's been maybe developing probably for the last 15 years. I remember reading about like the, what's his name? Joe Thompson. This he's a fiddle player from North Carolina who played like these, you know, old like black string band songs going back to like the 1700s.
Mm-hmm.
And they're in the process of making a documentary about him and about that whole history of music, about black music in America. And I think the first time I heard about it was probably in the early 2000s, the black banjo gatherings they used to have, where, and that's another example of not a straight line, the banjo coming from, as a gourd instrument, in the memories of people coming over from Africa, and then being remade in America, and it comes out as a banjo, as we know it today eventually. So I think it's been happening for a while, but I think this year really these people kind of became more on people's radar, as far as like, they were streaming more, they took more control over, like, press, and social media, I think, has helped a lot with that. So yeah.
I was surprised when I looked at the release date of Our Native Daughters, Songs of Our Native Daughters.
Mm-hmm.
And it was actually 2019. It's been a couple of years already,
Yeah.
I've been diving so much into that stuff too that I thought it was more recent. But I mean, 2019 is pretty recent. It's not, you know what I'm saying? But
right, yeah.
Yeah, Rhiannon Giddens is endlessly interesting to listen to talk.
Oh, she is. Yeah, I mean,
music.
We were just talking about that podcast you sent me recently.
Yeah, just this week on on American. I don't know. I forget the podcast, but no, that's really, that's definitely been something that I've gotten a tremendous amount out of the last couple of years. This year, much, listening to all that music and learning the history more and more.
Yeah, I think I think it's great to, recognize where this music came from, because when kind of being forgotten, there's kind of like this economic and political subjugation, where people are, just kind of left out of the story. They're not in the history books. They're not, being, financially rewarded, with writing a song, or so I think it's a good thing.
Yeah, definitely.
So it was great to read about that and see new releases, and read about it in major, like Rolling Stone or, NPR, or these kind of major kind of national and international publications. So.
Yeah. It's interesting from from a couple of different perspectives too. Like, it's really interesting from it's really interesting from a historical perspective, sociologically, but it's also really interesting musically and also instrumentationally, learning about these instruments that are sort of being reclaimed as important instruments in Black music history that haven't always been associated with is so fascinating. Or just unpacking the history of an instrument like you just did with the banjo.
Right. Yeah.
It's just really it's really cool.
Yeah.
So I find that also to be a great addition to the music landscape.
Yeah, and there's so many similarities between instruments too, between different cultures, right?
Yeah.
When you look at the bagpipes, you think, oh, Scottish Highland bagpipes, but Ireland has the Uilleann pipes, and the Middle East has bagpipes, Iraq, Italy. So these instruments are kind of, in different kind of iterations of themselves, or in different places all over the world. The guitar, like how many different places you can see something that looks like a guitar, or like maybe doesn't have 6 strings, but it plays like you and I could probably figure it out,
Yeah, right.
or get a sound out of it at least,
Yeah,
so
definitely. Yeah, that's a good one.
yeah. So I'm always, that stuff will hold my attention all day if I would let it. So
Absolutely.
so that's my number 3.
See the things that you can learn when you stop watching Marvel superhero movies. It's amazing.
You can do both.
If only Marvel would stop making so much content, I might be able to read a few more books, Oh man.
That's great.
All right, here's my next one, okay?
Yes.
Just recently, I mean, this is just like the other day, discovering this amazing guitar player from the Bahamas named Joseph Spence.
Oh, Joseph Spence, yeah.
Who I didn't know about, and
he's crazy good.
Mutual friend of ours shared something, which was just a Christmas song that he had done. And I was so taken with that
oh yeah.
I then watched the 1-hour documentary about him, which is also really great.
Yeah.
It's really made with a lot of love for this.
Oh yeah.
Guy who was just, yet another wonderful musician who probably not a lot of people have heard of, unless you're really like a guitar aficionado. But what a great life and what a great character he was.
Oh yeah.
And how special this music community is down in the Bahamas.
Right. Oh yeah. And you learn a little bit about the history of the Bahamas too.
Yeah. And how, just kind of like, of course, two white guys from New York had to come down and discover him.
Right.
But they would,
discover.
It was with good intention. They were working for Folkway Records, and they had heard about him, and they wanted to make sure that his music was recorded. But there's just always that constant thing that like it doesn't exist until white people find it and say that it exists, right? That whole
right. Yeah. If it's on our radar, then okay, now it's Right. Well, that kind of goes back, to what we were just talking about. Yeah.
But man,
he's
what a great. I loved learning about him, and I loved watching this documentary. It was really made with a lot of care, and the people who spoke about him just had a real reverence for him as a guitar player, but also as a person.
Yep.
And man, if you've never heard Joseph Spence sing while playing the guitar, that is something not to be missed.
No, he's an incredible guitar player. And I first heard about him through, I think I said in the email about through the Incredible String Band, the Scottish band from the 60s.
Yeah.
Who kind of were really influenced. I mean, they were kind of way ahead of their time in some ways because they used instruments from all over the world and they were well versed. And I got some of the records when I was in high school. I had read about them in a book. They sound interesting. And I interview with them when they talk about, his music. And so I was like, oh, I'll pick up some of it. But I couldn't find any, so I knew his name for years. But it probably wasn't until the internet that I was able to actually hear his music.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Sometimes I think that maybe that's what the gift of this time is. If current music is going to be this bad, it's a great opportunity to go discover stuff that you may not have heard before, right? Like if I was obsessed right now with all the current bands, like I was throughout my 30s, and because that was such a rich time for music, that I would not have time or maybe interest to go poke around and learn about someone like Joseph Spence, because I'd be too busy listening to the new Matthew Sweet album or whatever.
Yeah. Hey,
always
I mean? Look on the bright side.
Yeah, there's the silver lining, I think.
Yeah. As Eric Idle said, I always look on the bright side. Yeah, that's a good one. You ready for my next one?
I am.
Well, this kind of goes hand in hand with that. It's my I'm grateful to the music podcasts I listened to this year. I have you're my podcast go-to guy for like, podcasts, because I don't actively seek them out. And the only time I really listen to them is when you send me something and I'm like, oh, that's cool. I need to listen to that more.
Yeah.
And then I just usually go back to music. But there was a couple of podcasts, and this kind of fits in with maybe Western popular music not being so hot. There's one podcast I listen to called Pod Wireless, out of the UK, and it's by this guy Ian Anderson, not the Jethro Tull guy with the flute. He's British and his name's Ian Anderson, but he doesn't play the flute. He used to run a magazine called Folk Roots, which I had a subscription to, and it was all kind of world, like roots-based music, from around the world. All these different bands from England, Americas, Africa, Asia, Eastern Europe. And so he kind of, after the magazine folded, he started this podcast thing where he does like a monthly show, and he finds all this great music. And he tries to showcase new music as well. So that's kind of where I find a lot of my new music, because I mean, I'm not going to sit down and listen to Taylor Swift or, someone else like that, but I'll listen to this. And the other podcast I listen to is Seattle Sacred Music and Arts. And it's they do during the pandemic, they kind of started doing more kind of live streams with bands from around the world that were doing interesting things musically, kind of healing music and kind of roots music. So just having those two outlets to listen to music that was new for me was really nice, and I could discover new stuff. So
Cool. Yeah, podcasts are really great.
yeah,
I feel like I have quite a list of ones that I listen to, and there's not enough time
yeah,
to them all. But that's been one of the ways I've experienced music in 2021 for sure, is through
yeah,
podcasts that introduce me to stuff, or just to cover an interesting topic.
right, yeah.
Like this one, like ours,
That's right.
the Lake and Bridge podcast.
The Lake and Bridge, yes. Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah,
Cool.
very cool.
So what else you got?
Well, now we're getting to the big ones. I've got basically 3 left, maybe a fourth, but now we're up to the big stuff. All right.
Okay. All right.
So one big takeaway for me this year, one of my favorite musical experiences this year, was just seeing the new West Side Story in the theater. Which first of all, going to the movies and seeing a musical is quite something, like it's a very cool, big experience, and it should be done there. I also saw In the Heights this year in the movie theater.
Oh yeah.
Which is not, even close to being on par with West Side Story, but it was cool too. It's definitely cool. Just seeing people on the big screen singing and dancing.
Right.
Is pretty great. And
yeah.
But this production of West Side Story by Steven Spielberg directed it. I thought it was just they all hit it out of the park.
Wow, nice.
I found it very moving, and of course it all starts with the music. And so it's gotten some, not everyone has loved it. It's gotten some criticism for a lot of things related to the portrayal of Latin American communities and so forth, and I get all of that, and I think it's really important to talk about all that stuff and to look at it and be critical about it. But I'm just talking tonight about the music and about the dance.
Yeah.
And the music and the dancing are always fantastic. There's just that music by Leonard Bernstein is some of the most amazing stuff I think the humans have ever made. I think it stands up as just like the most beautiful collection of songs Um,
It's gorgeous. Yeah.
it's incredible. And you know, for me, I can listen to the album. I don't even need the movie.
Right. I have the album too. Yeah.
But there are some performances in this version, like the woman who plays Anita is,
Hmm.
oh my God, she's amazing.
Wow.
And the guy who plays Riff is great. The woman who plays Maria, I thought was amazing. Rita Moreno
Hmm.
is in it.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
She's a legend.
yeah. And so the
Yeah.
cast is really good. And it's just, I thought it was really, really well done. And it made me very, very moved, very
Uh-huh.
happy to just
Yep.
experience a musical like that.
Yeah.
And it definitely was one of my favorite 2021 music experiences for sure.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah, West Side Story was when Winnie and I first dating was a movie that, you know, she kind of, when you first meeting someone and dating, you're kind of like, oh, do you like this? Do you like, hey, let me play you this movie, let me play you this song. And she rented West Side Story to see what I would think of it because she loves that movie so much. And little did she know my mom was a huge musical fan. So I knew it. And I was like, yeah, of course I love West Side Story. Um, so yeah, the music, yeah, Leonard Bernstein it's just an amazing piece of art, musically and theatrically. Um, yeah, it's got everything, right? That's a cliche, but it really does.
Yeah.
Dancing, singing, music.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And it is heartbreaking. It's a downer. The end of the movie is a total downer.
right. Sure.
Um, but even in its like down storytelling ending, it's still a very it's such a hopeful story of just, hope and love
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
what can be when you're open to experiencing those things.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and just the power of song, like especially when the songs are that good, you
Oh
know.
yeah. Yeah.
And nothing against a musical like In the Heights, but when you can hear the difference between brilliant and good,
Right.
you know, um,
Hmm. Sure.
which I think has been part of the big problem with musicals for the last 25 years or so, is that there's just there
Yeah.
hasn't been like a collection of, there hasn't been music to go along with any of these musicals that have come out in the last 25 years that I think stands up to something like West Side Story.
Right. Right.
Um,
Yep.
so
Yeah. Understood. Cool.
yeah,
I'm looking forward to seeing the new
yeah,
release.
I can't wait to talk to you about it.
Yeah. Nice. Now, you ready for my next one?
Yeah.
All right. My next one,
Good.
were the Tiny Desk home concerts of 2021.
Oh yeah.
I kind of got addicted to these, like watching these,
Mhm.
usually late at night, and everyone's gone to bed and maybe I'm having a cup of tea or something and quiet, and I can just throw on one of these Tiny Desk home concerts where people are performing out of their homes.
Did you have any favorites?
I have a couple, yeah. One of them was Laos and the Yazuka. She's a Congolese Belgian singer. She's kind of like a singer rapper, but it was so cool, and the songs were really cool. Um, Great arrangements. I think she's got a really cool voice.
Hmm.
Um, let's see. Well, one of my other favorites. This was a favorite release of 2021. Mdou Mokhtar. He had an album called Afrique Victime. He's a Tuareg musician from North Africa. His band actually toured North America this year, unbelievably. But they did it. They didn't come to Vermont, but they toured America. Maybe next time. He put on a great show. It was actually outside. They weren't inside. Who else? Oh, this guitar player, Yazmin Williams. She's a younger guitarist. And she's a kind of a virtuoso, but sometimes with me, at least with virtuosos, I get a little bored after a while. It's like, oh yeah, okay, yeah. And
Yeah,
the
I know what
songs
you
aren't
mean. I know what you mean.
and
Yeah.
the songs aren't really there,
Yeah.
and the feelings not really there for me, at least. I mean, other people love that stuff, and I get that,
Yeah.
but you know, sometimes with the virtuosos, I'm like, oh. But with her, There was a lot of feeling, a lot of soul. We're gonna get hate mail now. What do you mean you don't like Emerson, Lake and Palmer? But with her, it's like there's so much soul and creativity. She's playing the guitar and tap dancing, with her sitting down with her tap shoes on at one point, or
Uh-huh.
she kind of attaches this calimbra, the thumb pianos
Right,
to
right,
her
right.
guitar. She plays acoustic guitar, and occasionally she'll play it like on her lap,
Uh-huh.
fretting, with this. Um, and she just looks like she's having so much fun too,
Hmm.
So those are my top three Tiny Desk
Oh,
Home concerts.
I have to tune into those more regularly. I mean, I guess you go to their website and you can watch all of them, right?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Or
Yeah.
they used to be a streaming channel. I think there might still be. You can kind of stream Tiny Desk Home concerts from the beginning of time. So
Yeah, yeah.
you
Yeah,
can
I
go
have to
back.
check out more of the unknown people who get on there. I've seen some of the more famous people on there.
Yeah.
Um,
Yep. Those are
like
fun too. Yeah.
there's a really good one with Gillian Welch and Dave Rawlings.
Yep. I've seen that one. Yeah.
Suzanne Vega did a really nice one. Um,
Yeah.
Amy
John Prine
Mann,
has a great one.
John Prine has a really nice one.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, those are great.
Yeah. So
Yep.
that's mine.
Cool.
How many more left? You have two more
I
left?
got two more. My next one is my book, my favorite music autobiography of this year, which was the Miles Davis autobiography,
Oh, yeah.
which is not a new book by any means. I think it came out in the 80s, right? Or late or
I
early
think
90s,
so. I
something
think the
like that.
80s, yeah, because he
Yeah,
passed away in late 80s, right?
I think so.
Yeah.
But it was a book that I just, it's been on my to-do list for a really long time. And
Hmm.
I finally got to it this year. It was the second book I read this year.
Yeah.
And I just really enjoyed it. First of all, I love autobiographies when they're written by people who stay in their true voice throughout the whole book.
Hmm.
Like Levon Helm, his book is
Right.
made for that same reason. And
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Yeah.
so I mean, it's just like listening to Miles talk to you,
Hmm.
and he curses like every other sentence, which is
He's
amazing.
Miles, right? Yeah.
So that was great, really great book. I loved it, and I learned a lot about him, and I learned a lot about some other people.
It's a complex character. Yeah.
Yep. And it
Yeah.
added a lot to my listening of his music, knowing now
Hmm.
a little bit more about, what was going on.
Yeah.
All that stuff happened.
Yeah. He was pretty, I mean, he was kind of there at like some really pivotal moments in musical history, right?
Well, he
Um,
spans a really long stretch, like he's talking
yeah.
about Louis
Bebop and
Armstrong,
yeah.
and going all as a peer or as someone who,
Right.
when he was young, he was through Dizzy Gillespie and up into much more modern jazz, and then eventually all the way up to Prince. You
Right. It's pretty
um,
political. Yeah.
yeah, as
Yeah. He
people
was
that
kind of,
he played with, like not
yeah.
just talking about them, but
Right.
um,
Yeah. He kind of helped change music a couple of times,
yeah.
you know. Yeah, cool jazz. Yeah, and the people he
There's like
played with.
several different
Right, you have
Miles
yeah,
Davis. There's like the guy
the
with the
bitches
slick back
brew.
hair and the nice shirt and tie and suit, all
Right.
the way up to that guy wearing like sleeveless t-shirts and a
Yeah,
headband,
right.
you know, not really
And
giving a
then
shit anymore.
yeah.
And the Jerry curls, and
Oh, I know. Yeah.
so that was
Yeah.
yeah, that was a really great book. Enjoyed that a
Oh,
lot.
nice one. Yeah, I read that one too. That's a great book.
Yep.
I really like that one.
Yeah.
All right. I guess I have two more left, I think. Um, this is also a pandemic. I guess these are mostly pandemic related ones, but it's taking guitar lessons online this year.
Mm.
Yeah, starting I think in February, maybe. I told you this story, and I may have told it in another podcast about you know, again, up late at night watching YouTube, and this guitar player I really like was kind of, demonstrating some rhythms of North Africa, Justin Adams. And I was kind of playing along and like, oh, I think I got this. then he goes, well, if anybody ever wants to take lessons, it's the pandemic, I don't have any gigs right now, send me an email. And so I found him on Facebook, I think, sent him an email, and a day later he's like, sure, let's do lessons. And so um I think the great thing about instruments is that you're always learning. There's always something to learn, and that's exciting to me. It's like I'm never like, oh, I'm done. I've learned everything I could need to know about the guitar. I'm done. And to learn to kind of get more in-depth knowledge of these North African rhythms, how things work, and at the same time how they're connected to American music, American blues, American folk, um, American, bluegrass and country. All this stuff is connected, and so just to hear that connection and be like, oh right, yeah, okay, is just really fascinating for me. And just to get to work with this guy, Justin Adams, who's a brilliant guitar player, really knowledgeable about music, the guitar rhythms, North African music. It was just really a nice thing, and a good kind of pick me up,
Yeah.
before the vaccines came along. And
How many lessons did you take?
I've done 3 so far, so maybe I'll hit him up again. And it was kind of validating because he taught me this one song, an Algerian song, and I kind of put it together with this looping pedal I got, and I started the rhythm, and then I had the rhythm guitar come in, and I had the lead part come in, and I put it on, and I hardly ever do this, but I put it on Facebook and YouTube, and I said, oh, I got a new looping pedal. This is an Algerian song that Justin Adams taught me. And he commented, he was like, bravo, and I was like, ugh,
Oh,
it was like, oh, that's nice.
wow, that's
So
great.
yeah, he's a great guy. And it was just, yeah, it was nice to make that connection and to learn new stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's great.
and keep my old geezer brain going. So
Yeah, like you said, there's always something to learn about all these instruments.
yeah.
I
So
stumbled upon a John Mayer instructional video the other night, of all people.
oh yeah,
Someone I don't really think about much. I know he's a great
right.
guitar player, but I just watched it for the heck of it, and it was actually really great. He was explaining a concept that he himself had just kind of started exploring. And it was cool to realize that even someone as talented and successful as him,
Yeah.
still sits down quietly at home in his house and thinks about and works on learning new things.
Oh yeah.
Because even those who have made it to the top of their game and are getting paid handsomely for it,
Right.
haven't learned everything.
It is nice, right?
Yeah. And I could tell in the way that he was explaining it that it was really fascinating for him,
Yeah.
So there's a lot of really cool videos out there, and if it can lead to lessons with someone who's as amazing as the person was for you, that's really cool.
Yeah. I highly
Maybe John
recommend
Mayer will
lessons.
start doing lessons. Who knows?
You never know. Yep. That's cool.
Yeah.
All right,
Nice.
you're up next, my friend.
All right, so I'm just going to finish off with I guess one is an honorable mention, which is just there was that little window in spring and summer when things were a little less scary.
Yeah.
And it was really nice to get out there and play some shows again.
Yep.
And they were almost all of them were outside, so that felt very safe. And so, but just more than anything, it was just so great to put the guitar on and step in front of a microphone and sing songs to people.
Oh yeah.
It was really, really, I don't think I'll ever take it for granted again.
No.
If I ever was, which I don't think I was anyway, but
yeah,
certainly put a new perspective on it, you know.
Yep.
And some of them were with you, which was great.
Yeah.
That was
Yeah. Yeah.
really
Yeah.
fun, and
Yep.
so that was cool. But ultimately, my favorite music experience of 2021 is probably pretty obvious. We did a whole podcast on it, but it is the glorious 8 hours of the Beatles Get Back documentary.
What was the name of the band? I'm sorry. No.
Yeah. And I'm going to now make my pick for the top album of 2021.
Really?
Yeah. It's Let It Be by the Beatles. I'm going to say that that album has been reborn and is the best album I think anybody put out this year.
Oh, a bold pick, my friend.
Yeah, it's got some great songs on it.
Yeah.
In fact, there's no bad songs on it.
Right.
And it's just these four really talented young guys from England, and it's a great album. You should check it out.
Let's see if I can find it. Is it available on all your streaming platforms, or?
It sure is. And and then after you've heard it, you can watch this great documentary where you can learn about how they made the album.
Right, how it came together. Yeah.
But that was by far my favorite 2021 music experience. My only regret is that it couldn't be watched on a big screen, because as I just talked about with West Side Story, to watch music in any form on the big screen.
Oh yeah.
Just even to just watch four guys noodling around,
right,
talking to each other,
yep.
would have just been really cool to see on the big screen.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So that's my number one pick. My favorite music experience of 2021.
Wow, good one.
Yeah.
Do I have one more, or is that it? I can't remember.
I don't know.
As usual, I just have a bunch of scribblings on paper.
Yeah, I love that about your lists.
I know. Well, I also had playing live as a favorite moment, and it was more of a favorite moment than I thought it would be until I got up there and actually started playing. Because when the pandemic started, what was it? I think my last gig before the pandemic was in early March of 2020. And it was one of those gigs where everybody kind of knew something weird was happening. It was a very kind of subdued gig, and everyone left right afterwards. No one hung out. It was kind of half full. And then I think, a couple days later, it was just like everything was shutting down. There were signs everywhere, stay inside, And it's like, well, what's going to happen? We didn't know what was going to happen, And granted, we were okay. We still had work, we had a place to live. We had grocery stores, so all this, but I didn't know about music. What was music going to look like? So part of me was like, well, I don't know. Who knows what this thing is going to, we didn't know. Is this going to get even worse? Is it going to be like one of those sci-fi movies? So when the opportunity came, when things got better and the numbers were down and people were getting vaccinated, and I had an opportunity to do a live gig last summer, and I took it, and it was a little nerve-wracking those first couple of bars, after not playing out for a year and a half. But it, like the old adage, it's like riding a bike, and it felt great. It felt great to connect with people, and to see people getting into it and to connect with the other musicians on stage.
Yeah.
And I was just like, oh, this is what it's about, connecting with people and playing and sharing this joy, and these experiences, whatever they are, with people, and having them, connect with that.
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, and playing playing in the really hot basement of Tim Lewis's, childhood home was another highlight.
Yeah.
And even after the fact, hearing how good it came out.
Right. Yeah.
Just because I think we were both like tired and hot and probably a little hungry.
Yeah.
And like, dirty and sweaty, and then like hearing how it came out was like, this sounds really good. Wow. Not to be egotistical, but you
Right?
know,
No, it did come out good. And then we got some really good Chinese food after that, right?
we did. Yeah, we went to Chen Express. Yeah.
I was skeptical of that Chinese restaurant, but it was
You were, because it used to be an old KFC. Yeah.
but it was really good, really good.
And I warned you, I said, don't be scared when you walk inside.
Right.
Because I mean, you're from New York, so you're like, there's Chinese restaurants everywhere.
Yeah.
And you have a Chinatown, and we
Yep.
don't.
Yep.
So
No, that was cool.
Yeah.
Playing live was really cool. Yeah.
yeah, playing live. So I think, yeah. And then I had honorable mentions. I think documentaries, just watching music documentaries over the old ones and new ones like the Beatles, it was really nice to watch. And revisiting some old ones.
Mhm.
Just getting to play music with friends again,
Mhm.
was really nice. Working on different projects
Yeah.
with Erica, who lives here in our building and is working on an EP,
Mhm.
even just to bounce ideas off, and reconnecting with an old friend of mine from the 80s,
Mhm.
and working on a project with him and a couple other people. So yeah.
Yep.
And of course, always working with you is always a blast.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm
And
always happy
you
to
put
get
up
involved in some
you,
kind of music project.
you put up with me, so not him
Oh,
again.
no. You old so and so.
Yeah. So yeah.
It was great. And this podcast has been a great experience this year.
Yeah,
So
definitely. Yeah.
we'll keep them coming in 2022.
Yes. Maybe we'll have some special guests or something.
Oh, that would be great. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jeff Tweedy has not responded yet.
David Byrne hasn't either, so
he's a busy guy. We may want to start smaller.
Yeah, if you want to be on our show, send us an email.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, that's our top 10 musical moments.
Well, that's our list. So those were our favorite 2021 music experiences. Have a happy new year, Ted.
Yes, happy new year to you, Dan.
I hope it rings in some good stuff for you.
Yeah.
And your family.
Thank you. As with you and Tina as well.
We will try to play all our guitars this year.
That's right. I'm sure you will.
Well, you have to pick certain days of the week, I think, to be one for each guitar,
Right. This is definitely, a Telecaster day.
Yeah, Tuesday Telecaster.
Right.
Let's see, Monday Martin. That kind of thing.
Yeah. You have a Washburn for Wednesday?
I don't have a Washburn. Friday Fender could work.
Oh yeah.
Saturday, I don't know, Squire. No, I don't have any Squire guitars.
No.
Yeah.
Well, we'll come up with some.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, everybody.
Don't slide around on the roads.
I won't. I'll be walking.
Okay. Peace and love.
That's right. That's what Ringo says.
What's the meaning of this dream you had? What's a